I think you will agree with me that most of the UFO testimonies and photographs do not stand up to any criticism. But still, sometimes material appears that not only intrigues, but raises the question, what are we facing? This is the question that arises when reviewing the following case material. Several years ago, a famous American UFO researcher, Alex Mister, received a phone call from one of his regular European informants. He said that Mr. urgently needed to see some impressive pictures. These pictures turned out to be unique top-secret photos, which had been obtained from an anonymous source. Allegedly, they were taken by the U.S. military from a submarine. Moreover, these photos show several objects with different shapes. And what is more intriguing is that the experienced researchers of such phenomena, who have eaten a dog in extracting all sorts of hoaxes, have not found traces of editing in the following photos and still can't prove that these photos are faked. So, the first series of photos shows a strange triangle-shaped object, and it looks as if it is either trying to fly away, or as if it is falling directly into the ocean. The shape of the ship is indeed very unusual, but the photos that follow intrigue even more. The following photos capture an even more impressive unidentified object. Look, you can see some huge cigar-shaped object hovering near the surface of the water, and note the dot above it. And according to the assumption of enthusiasts, this is exactly the same triangle from the last series of photos. And how can you not think of Star Wars? What's more, it's not clear from the photos whether this ship is hovering above the surface, has dived out of the water, or is preparing to dive. Because in the next photo, the same object is shrouded in smoke or spray. It's not very clear what's going on in the photo. Some enthusiasts have suggested that maybe the UFO was blown up by missiles from a submarine, but a much more popular suggestion is that this ship is coming straight out of the ocean. From the smoke is the steam coming from the glowing hull. And note that in the lower right corner you can see the SSN 674 safety certificate half wiped off, and unauthorized disclosure of the photo is a criminal offense. You'll find out what SSN 674 means later. Moving on. The following pictures show an egg-shaped object, which is already plunging directly into the ocean. Moreover, these photos were obviously already taken from another case. Note the sigma sign in the upper right corner. What this word means and what it has to do with the photos with this strange object, it was impossible to find out. Perhaps this is the name of a special department or laboratory for the study of such phenomena, but let's go further. The next picture shows a vessel very similar to the one in the previous picture. But what happens to it? Is it really on fire, or is it the steam that comes from the ship after it has surfaced from the ocean? And here comes the next picture, which most likely confirms the fact that this object did come out of the water. The same ship is already moving parallel to the water. It is worth noting what a perfect, even textbook, cigar-shaped shape this UFO has. And note also the angle at which the craft emerges from the ocean, or perhaps dives into the ocean. The ship goes from horizontal to vertical and enters the ocean at right angles, not flat. But unfortunately, even in photos with such a high resolution, it is almost impossible to see any details. An anonymous source who sent photos said that the submarine on which the photos were taken was equipped with an analog camera, which resulted in image overlapping or a double exposure effect. Because of this, the pictures were somewhat blurred. But what else did this mysterious anonymous man tell us? And he told quite a lot. First, as already said, the pictures were obtained from the American nuclear submarine, number SSN 674. Moreover, they were shot when the submarine was passing somewhere between Iceland and Jan Mayen Island in the Atlantic Ocean. Moreover, he claimed that the pictures were taken in March 1971 by a certain officer John Click. The informant goes on to say that the submarine approached the objects by accident. At the time the photographs were taken, the submarine was passing in those waters on a routine route as part of a planned military and scientific expedition, and the anonymous source has no doubt that the objects photographed were of an extraterrestrial nature. The first thing the enthusiasts began to do was to find out the circumstances of this expedition. They found official documents and confirmed that in March 1971, the American submarine number SSN-674 was really in the area. According to the documents, the submarine was testing and collecting data on its weapons systems and at the same time was conducting scientific research on the ice cap of the North Atlantic. The submarine was commanded by Admiral Dean Sackett, a man with a very solid record who was trusted with the most difficult expeditions. And under his command was indeed Officer John Click, who allegedly took these unique pictures. Well, now for the best part. It turns out that Admiral Dean Sackett was still alive when this piece was published, and in 2015 a former Navy pilot, Steve Murillo, called and personally spoke with Admiral Sackett at the researchers' request. Admiral Sackett evaded a direct question about the UFO photos and said only that he saw only ice during the voyage. But on the other hand, the Admiral did not deny the photos and agreed to check them and asked to have the photos sent to his email account. And that's what happened next. The enthusiasts managed to talk personally not only to the Admiral, but also to the very John Click mentioned by the anonymous source. The Admiral confirmed that he had been aboard the ship in those waters in March 1971, and once again stated categorically, literally, "I saw only ice." He also stated that he could not determine what the pictures depicted or whether they were taken aboard his submarine. Of course, the pictures could be a hoax, on the other hand. In any case, the Admiral is obliged to adhere to the oath of non-disclosure of such information, and he hardly has the right to confirm the reality of these pictures. So what did Officer John Clicker say? John Clicker also confirmed that he was on the ship at the time, and on the one hand he claims that none of the crew saw anything strange in the ocean during the voyage. But, on the other hand, he was very intrigued by this story and made one very interesting statement. There was another submarine in the same area, about the same time, and this submarine was found to be numbered USN 578, and indeed was also in those waters at that time. But enthusiasts still have not been able to find out what it was doing there, and by this point they have never received any official comment on the case. But the investigation continues. Still, what is depicted in these photos, and eventually the question came up, is there any other way to explain these photos? One of the researchers who was interested in the case noticed that the object in some of the photos looked very similar to the Zeppelin airship. Except that, unlike the real Zeppelin, this object does not have a passenger basket. On the other hand, one of the tasks of the submarines was scientific testing and research on the glaciers of the Atlantic, and the idea arose that these objects could be test research balloons. And this is what was discovered. The following photographs were taken at the beginning of the 20th century. Indeed, such balloons are very similar to the last object that thrusts into the ocean at right angles. They were indeed used for research at the beginning of the century. It would seem that the answer has been found, but this theory also has several buts. First, since 1915, researchers have not been able to find a single photograph or mention of such trials with such balloons. Second, even assuming that such tests were conducted in March 1971, why do Admiral Sackett and Officer Click insist that they only saw ice? Another suggestion is that these objects were targets for test salvos from submarine guns, but then again, why hide that? Yes, and such targets might have been needed in those years. It wasn't the beginning of the century after all. It is also quite possible that some new type of weaponry being tested was filmed in the photos. This is consistent with both the purpose of the submarine expedition and the fact that there was another submarine in those waters at the same time, about which almost nothing is known. And Officer Click's words about the second submarine can be taken as a hint to the true state of affairs, if one wishes. But nevertheless, what is shown in these unique photographs? It still remains unclear. Maybe we finally have some real proof of the rumors about underwater bases of another civilization. Write your versions. Maybe together we will get to the truth. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and write what you think about it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support is very important to me.